Welcome to the View from the Inside podcast, episode number 6. Kevin Richardson, your host, and I've got probably one of my favorite guys as a guest for this podcast. His name's Eric Reveno. He's the associate head men's basketball coach at Stanford. The full title of that is the James C. Gaither Associate Head Men's Basketball Coach at Stanford. And we're going to talk to Eric. We're going to learn a little bit about his origin story. And then more importantly, because it's football season, but also an election year, we're going to hear about this all vote, no play thing that Eric was able to launch on a national level back in 2020. Just an amazing story talking about voter registration. We're not going to get into politics. We're going to get into just the logistics of, hey, let's all use that right that we're given, that right to vote. So anyhow, first off, Eric, man, great to have you on board. Thanks for being a part of the View from the Inside.
Awesome. No, great to be here. I've, how long have I known you now? I didn't want to do the math, but it's been a long time. It's always fun. Us old guys talk about social media, and sort of the negativity of it. But the great thing is to be able to keep up with people. And it's been fun following your journey and exciting you're doing this, inspiring, so I hope I can add to the content here. You've had some great guests already, so it's good stuff.
Well, and we talk about that social media. Again, I think you and I, one of the main reasons we've been able to stay in touch is mostly on Twitter, because every year at your birthday, you actually go into the gym and dunk a basketball. And it's so fun to watch. I keep waiting for that Achilles tendon to explode and have that live streamed also. But that's one of your annual things you do, right?
Yeah. So now you've paid your debt for having me on. You've told everyone I've dunked on my birthday. So that's we're good now. So I'm 58, going to be 59 this March. And when I was 50, I started doing it. I don't know what, but like guys who were 50, 51, 52, and I could still do it. And then the last couple of years, it's gotten hard. And I actually passed up a workout this morning I'm feeling guilty about because I can't miss too many of those now. I'm worried. When I was 55, I thought I'd dunk when I was 70. But the key to remember is that I jump the same now as I did when I was 20. And you know that. You saw me jump when I was 20. The players see me dunk at 55 and 60, 56. They're like going, oh, man, you must have been a high flyer 30 years ago. No, I was about the same. So the good Lord gave me – my jumping hasn't left me much, but I wish I had it all when I needed it, more of it when I needed it, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like me and being able to run. My bell curve is really tight, right? It's not really much different. It wasn't really good, therefore it can't be really bad. So
right.
Well, so right now you're the associate head men's basketball coach at Stanford. Talk a little bit about where you grew up, because your association with Stanford has been pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's been lifetime, and it wasn't like I grew up just a complete fanatic. I grew up in Menlo Park. I was born at Stanford Hospital, grew up in Menlo Park, went to Menlo School, sort of in the wake of John Pay, a year behind him and a few years ahead of Kate Pay. Kate, I said we went to high school together, and she very quickly pointed out that we went to the same high school, not together, because I'm a little older. Kate's not a vain person, but it was funny seeing her, Coach Pay get a little bit defensive about being lumped in with me as a classmate. No, she was. So when I was bouncing around with John, she was, in 7th, 6th, 7th grade while we were juniors, seniors in high school. His senior year, we won the state championship. I say the wake of John Pay, that family going through Menlo and lifting us up to the state championship, and Stanford became sort of this thing that you kind of kept an eye on. But I was just trying to be a good basketball player, and I wasn't really until during Tom Davis was here, and I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship and make the team. I say, we have 13 scholarships now. It's moving to 15 again, but back then we had 15. And I say, if we didn't have 15 scholarships, I'm not sure I would have got one. Then coached at Stanford for 9 years, went to the Final Four my first year at Stanford as assistant coach. Then we won 3 Pac-10 championships. I mean, people forget, we went 99, 2000, 2001. We're winning championships. We had the number 1 ranked team in the country at one point, Jacobson, Collins twins. I get a lot of credit for coaching the Lopez twins. I didn't coach them. I recruited them from Fresno. So I got a lot of Stanford in my roots. And I know Kyle Smith, and I'm really excited about what we're doing now and him bringing me back. It's like the Washington State staff that was a top 25 staff last year, plus Rev. And I'm trying to be a positive influence on that. And it's college athletics, boy. It's like sometimes it feels like some of those surfing videos out of the Olympics, with those big old waves and dudes coming down. Sometimes you feel like you're just poised on the board, just cruising along with a GoPro taking your picture. Whereas, but now or other times you just get crushed by the wave. And so at Stanford, I'm excited about trying to be, I think Stanford, and this is, you get this, and maybe some of your listeners, but I think Stanford being successful in athletics is important for college athletics. Everyone has their role and stuff, but Stanford can be a leader there, and I'm excited about trying to contribute there. So that's sort of my ties to Stanford over the years. Got married there, went to graduate school there. Just a lot of sort of weaving in and out to be here at this juncture of my career, at this time in college athletics, to bump into people like you. What time are we setting up for the tailgate on Friday? Just let me know and I'll be there.
Yeah, well, so we've got a San Jose State broadcast on Thursday night. I told my wife it's a 2-meal tailgate on Friday. Yeah, lunch and dinner. So
you get the Spartans out of the way. You get that done on Thursday. I'm going to go see Coach Miles. Coach Miles has a former player of mine, Shoal Mario, playing. I was going to go see a workout this week. They're going. So Coach Miles at San Jose State's the best. So my mom's a San Jose Spartan,
Okay. Okay.
So I'm pulling for them all the time too. But I want, part of being back, get to go see some people. So it's fun.
Well, you mentioned a name there, Todd Lichty. Basketball player. I mean, if we talk about the guy that put modern Stanford basketball on the map, and I remember Todd, I think, a couple years younger than us. Is that correct?
He's 1 year young. He's 1 year younger. And then I redshirted from our class, So I ended up graduating with him and Howard Wright in the class behind us, the class of '89.
Yeah, and I remember, I roll onto campus in '84 and, give me a helmet, I'll just go spear somebody and, just trying to figure the whole thing out, quite frankly.
We're just trying to keep up with Wyman and company.
Yeah, exactly. Just not get destroyed in practice. And I remember just seeing Todd, he was just always either going to the gym to shoot or leaving the gym from getting done shooting. I remember thinking, this guy works on basketball more than anyone I've ever seen work on anything. And I started to kind of figure out, like, okay, this is that place, whether it's a concert pianist or somebody that wants to be great at physics. I mean, that's just a place that I don't like the word grinder because Todd wasn't a grinder. Todd was a spectacular athlete, just if he'd have done the regular stuff. But, like, that guy kicked it up to a whole other level. And I think that's one of the things that's so, like, amazing to me about Stanford. You see Ledecky do what she did, in the Olympics. And, I mean, it's like great talent combined with just this amazing work ethic and a strategic work ethic, I think, right?
Yeah, no. I was very fortunate. My 2 high school and college basketball experiences, like the best player, John Pay in high school and Todd Lichty in college, were the hardest workers. Like, me, I work hard and I'm proud of it. But I'd be more of what you'd call a grinder. Todd was talented, NBA elite athlete, and the hardest worker on the team. And I say that, that's sort of a mantle or a sort of a status that I always prided myself on, being one of the best. But he just worked, and he was constant. It was just going to shoot. Just, like you say, there's no exaggeration. He was always in the gym. I mean, I remember talking to a pretty girl that that we both know that was that they were dating, and he was like, well, why would you? Well, I was at the gym with him last night, and sort of what what that was to his life, and he was a worker, and just a really special group. But you talk about, Coach Smith talks about this sort of the ecosystem and like just the environment. We're recruiting guys, and we're trying to find guys that will just sort of excel in that environment. Think of it as a petri dish or whatever, but like, he's someone you got to have kind of your wheels turning and your sort of antennas up. And then once you hit the Stanford environment, because it really is Olympic Village type place where you just kind of, it inspires you. Literally, like, I remember going out to the barn and seeing Dave Wyman coming back from his ACL injury, and he's doing stuff with the squat there, and he's just, the seriousness at which he approached his work out there, just like, and I was afraid to talk to him, at that time, like he was just locked in, and I think he was pissed he's not practicing. He's coming back from his ACL, and he was just working, out there just working when no one's looking. And you see those moments all over the place at Stanford. We see him now. It just, the pool is a great place right by the Maples there, and the football practice field, and just the number of world-class swimmers you see just the grinding, swimming, putting in the reps in the morning. So it is really inspiring. You're not gonna, it's hard to think you're special at Stanford, and so it raises your game, and it just makes you better. And we want players that feed off of that thrive in that have the confidence to hold their own, but also the humility to realize that there's a lot of things around this place that can help you be better.
Well, and you talk about John Pay. Of course, he was a quarterback at Stanford, also played basketball at Stanford, and you're talking about a state title. You guys won the state title in high school in basketball. And I ran into John the other day. I believe it was during basketball season, actually. And, one of my things on Friday, believe it or not, I'll do a Google search and see what kind of Stanford football video I can find. And I found the 1984 Stanford at Oklahoma video. There were highlights of the game. And, John was a guy, again, worked at it all the time, super great athlete. And I always felt like, while he was referenced as a good quarterback, I thought he was great. And watching the film, as a guy who watches a lot of football, I was like, man, that guy was a great quarterback. Next time I see him, I'm going to tell him that, right? So yeah. I see him. I'm all excited to tell him the story about the Oklahoma game. I found it on the internet. And I'm like, John, man, you could throw the out like nobody's business. That's the throw that a quarterback has to make if he's any good. And it was so funny because his comment was, well, if I remember correctly, I threw an interception to Brian Bosworth, a.k.a. the Boz, right? But it also kind of speaks to that petri dish, if you will, at Stanford, where, like, nothing's ever really good enough for anybody, right? I mean, and I'm like, yeah, but John, I just wanted to give you a compliment, right? And he's just like, I don't know, he undercut the route, and I was just really bummed I threw an interception. But anyhow.
The football guys have always been great. I love watching them. The other one I still couldn't figure out, I still think about trying someday, is watching the workouts. John would drag me out there sometimes when he was really low on guys just to catch a ball for him, right? So he didn't have to chase it. So I'd stand there and catch it or do something. He didn't have me run routes, but he'd have me stand somewhere, tell me to turn my shoulders. He's fired balls at me. Good for the hands. But I wanted to see you out there with Ken Marjoram doing the Frisbee workouts in the spring. Him out there. I looked out there one time, and he's out there with his headband on, doing like the old Stanford stuff. He's out there doing the Frisbee workouts. I'm like, hey, he's in the NFL, but even that guy's coming back, and we have that, and just the environment. We've got the alumni weekend, the 25th. We're going to have 25th is a Friday, I think, but that alumni weekend, we're having an open practice for former players and a barbecue. And so I'm very blessed and fortunate to be back here. And it's a special place. And
So open to watch, but you can't actually jump in and practice. I mean,
Yeah, we might. I always wanted to get you at a rebounding station. When your kids were a little younger and you were thinking they might have a hoops chance, you used to corner me and ask me about rebounding drills. I'm like, God bless these poor little kids. between you and Teresa, the rebounding drills and I said, well, the kids won't be soft. I know that much. They might have some other things, but they're gonna be tough, you know.
yeah, they could take up space down at the block playing basketball. That's for sure.
Well, you were always jealous because you looked at me and you're like, he's no different than me. He's the same damn. You're looking at me and go, he's the same damn thing. I could do what he does, for God's sake.
See, that's the thing. I always loved football because I always felt like to play college football, you had to be able to do one of three things. You either had to be really strong, really fast, or just get really pissed off, right? The guys that can do all three, they're like Dave Wyman, the linebacker that played for the Seahawks and the Broncos. You play forever, right? But in college football, you only have to do one of those. Basketball, you have to be able to catch it. You got to be able to dribble it. You got to be able to jump, do all those things. But anyhow, well, so let's start talking about, it is, an election year. November 5th, right, is the date of the election. And you were down at Georgia Tech as an assistant coach. I believe it was 2020. Some things happened, and it kind of started this groundswell, if you will, that went national, which was a really cool thing to see in a time where we were kind of locked down, trying to figure out what the world was all about. Talk about what went on down there and what that led to.
Well, for a West Coast guy, living in Atlanta was a great experience. I liked Atlanta a lot. Working at Georgia Tech with Coach Pastner was a great experience. And I was down there right around, with George Floyd and all that civil unrest was happening. And I'm sitting there on my watching on CNN the riots, basically, down in downtown Atlanta, which is like 3 miles from my house in Midtown Atlanta, max. And I got helicopters flying overhead, heading down there, and I'm just sitting there. We have an 8:00 Zoom that night with the team to talk about things. And we had a really good moderator, school guys, a really good moderator to talk through things. And they went around the Zoom call, and everyone spoke a little bit. And it got to my turn, and I just said I felt my heart was really just broken for all these guys. Like we had African American teammates in college, and we understood that their parents had to go through things to get their kids to the situation they were, and a lot of them had different privileges or different opportunities than we may have had. And then maybe some of that, when you got pulled over by a policeman, you had different concerns. And it broke my heart, that these guys were saying things about driving around Atlanta, that some of our teammates maybe might have said, or their parents, and it's just sort of driving around Atlanta. They want to be wearing their Georgia Tech gear because they felt safer when they got pulled over. And there wasn't, just these things. It's just like, what have we gotten better? Have we improved it? Like, what have I done? And then, and so I was really just struck by that. And then we got the next guy up was Malachi Rice. And he said, you guys want to know if we should go down and protest. Should we do this? Should we do that? I want to know how many of you guys have signed up to vote. You guys registered to vote. And it wasn't my idea. And it was like, and voting hadn't even, I was just stuck in the problem. I was just stuck in you talk a good game about being a great teammate. You talk a good game about leaving places better than you found it. And this shit's not any better than it was when, it was really, it was a heavy deal. And so I came back around. I said, I promise you. And I looked at the call. I said, I promise you I'm going to do better. Because I had spent, at that point, 22 years of my college coaching career, and not once had I asked an athlete whether they were going to vote. Not once did I say, but in a fall election year, hey, are you registered to vote? Do you know how to do it? Do you know where it is? Hey, here's a form. Hey, go online. It's a federal law that colleges are required to try to or help facilitate students to register. It's like Title IX, same federal, different federal legislation, but a federal legislation that colleges are supposed to facilitate registration. And it's what used to be pass out. They had to pass out online paper registration forms. Now it's online stuff. They need to make that stuff available and have a department and a person. But in my 22 years, I had not one person, not at Stanford for 9 years, not at Portland for 10 years, not at Georgia Tech for 4 years, 3 years at the time, had ever said, hey, coaches, let's nonpartisan, don't want to sway, but just get people register to vote. And we spent so much time teaching them in your field, financial literacy, which is so important, that if we all did a better job with that, it really improves the quality of our lives and our ability to retire and live the lives we want to live. Our health lives the quality of life, and sleep and strength and conditioning and all that stuff improves the quality of life. And we teach them that, but we didn't teach them hey, as a member of a community, if you engage, you're going to create a better future for yourself. Forget saving the world for 3 generations from now. You can live a better future for yourself if you engage. If you engage in your community, you'll be happier. You'll create a future. Maybe you'll have a stop sign where you want a stop sign by the school. Maybe your sheriff will be someone that feels and looks a little more like you. Maybe the one thing I don't know how to vote for is judges. I don't know how you do that. But anyway, so but there's all this stuff you can create a future for yourself that more feels like the future you want. And that's nonpartisan. And so I always, I had never done anything like that. And so I decided, I woke up the next day, and sorry, story got long, but I woke up the next day and I said, we need to make more space. There's other young coaches out there. There's young coaches out there that were like me, guys like you and me, that would have done more if asked to do more. But we didn't think about it. We were just going, now we're at the spot, we're thinking about this stuff more, but when we're just going and you got small kids, I'm trying to keep my job at University of Portland, just trying to win games. I used to say to myself, got to find a way to win more games, got to win more games. And I cared about kids. I wanted them to be, the reason I coach is to help kids be the best they can be and to build championship teams. Those are the most special things to me, is helping young people be the best they can be. Well, I just expanded and said, I want to help them be the complete person and help them build a future for themselves that they like. And so voting, I started doing that. I wanted to get coaches better. So all that said, I said, we need to take the day off for the voting. We need to give them space to vote. And so then my wife came up with the hashtag all vote, no play. And the election day off, and it just kind of took off. Like you say, I think people were feeling the need to do something. It was easy. It was social media. It was the timing was good. I feel like it's one of those ideas that if someone else had said it, if I wasn't going to say it, someone else was going to say it a few days later,
But didn't it feel like, let me ask a question there, because I know when that thing got going and that's all you're kind of doing at that time, sitting around watching social media because we couldn't be out and about. And I was stunned that 65% of eligible voters are registered to vote. I was stunned at how low that was. And I was ashamed that I didn't realize it was that low. And, again, how do you move the needle? You get the young people engaged on it, right?
Yeah. And the graph that got me was, us being born in 1966, that the number of voters in 18 to 24 is the group that they look at. That's how they cut the numbers. 18 to 24 has been in steady decline since 66. Wow. So during our lifetime, it just has continued to decline. And so everyone thought I was being political and trying to impact the next election. Well, no, I said, no, you check on me in a few years. I'm still going to be doing this. I want it to be, what's it going to be in 10 years?
Yeah.
So I want 18 to 24-year-old voter participation to go up. It's really bad. It's like 40%. It's like the area and school that wins the most, registration gets up to like 60, 70%. Like the last election, very contested and very highly publicized. It had a really high registration relatively. It's like set records, but the voter participation was still below 50%. And it's just getting them to engage. And I think it's a little bit like, I try not to take evangelical, overzealous position about it because, I mean, how many times were you told to get good night's sleep or eat right? Or, like you don't really, it doesn't all soak in right away. We're all different. We're all like, so a 21-year-old might not be ready for that messaging, but by a person of influence in his life saying these things over time, it's going to have an effect. And so maybe it's when you're 26, you're probably like, oh, that old line coach of mine used to always say, be quick, don't hurry. Now that's what whatever it is, that's basketball, mixing my metaphors, but but like whatever they used to say, like you start understanding some stuff, or like they talking about consistency versus just like, the power of consistency, or, 1% each day, or these concepts that people talk about, you don't get all the time, but they stick up there. Well, voting is the same thing. Like my college. So I want to be that. And our National Association of Basketball Coaches and the women's basketball coach have a coach's pledge where we pledge all vote, no play, coach's pledge. And they pledge to engage their student athletes and help them find a way to register and to make a voting plan. They also, the NCAA took it and made a day off with it, which the students did that. It became a bigger deal. Like I knew that football, I mean, you guys are meatheads, and taking Tuesday off is a tough deal. And so Tuesday off was really tough. I said I wanted it to be a waiver so that so my football team, plays on Saturday, and Tuesday's our big day, but I'm going to do some things. I'm going to have one of my 35 coaches take a lead on it and work on that. And make sure that everyone has an opportunity to register. And just sort of help them and make sure they got a voting plan for that Tuesday. Oh, they don't have class. They want to go vote in person in the morning. They can, or they got to vote by mail, and they got to do just sort of, and then you can just fill out an automatic waiver that says, go ahead, do it. So that's fine. Volleyball game on Wednesday, you don't want to miss practice. Well, now it's become a little even looser than that. First, it was really strict. You had to take the day off. Football guys hated it the worst. It's really strict. Now it's too loose, but it's in the conversation stage. Stanford calls it Democracy Day and takes a day off. It's just in the conversation, so we're making progress.
Well, and I found that interesting as I kind of got ready to do this podcast. I dug a little deeper, and it's interesting, right? Your older cohorts, people over 65, that has your highest percentage of voters. But you also remember that people that have access to healthcare and all the good stuff that we have going on in this country are going to live longer. Therefore, that number is skewed. So, the goal is to get everybody a chance to vote. And maybe this evolution for the all vote, no play around, I was surprised the main reason people cite for not going to vote is because of their work day. And I can relate to that in my first industry, which you can hear about on podcast number 1. But when I worked in the produce industry, literally didn't have time to do anything except go grab lunch, come right back to work. So, learning how to navigate that whole piece where you get the absentee ballot and how to get registered and do all that stuff. I mean, man, there's nothing but upside to that discussion in my mind.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's totally all upside. And I think even the opportunity to vote, like voter ID and stuff, like I'm kind of like, that's contentious in some places. And I think that, to me personally, I'm like, okay, you have to have an ID to vote. I'm okay with that, whereas I want to get everyone, but everyone who is a citizen maybe why aren't they automatically registered to vote, but yeah, you need an ID. I get that. Or you need this, or there's some discussion. The way it's so piecemeal. The thing that was striking in Atlanta was, the poll workers are hard. They're getting older. They're volunteers. Technologies help, but then the trusting of that, just the infrastructure of our democracy is just not where it should be. And so literally the fact that there were lines and longer waits just reported, you watch the local news, and it's just like, it's not happening in Buckhead, but voting in Buckhead's easy,
Yeah.
but it's something,
right.
In Atlanta. And it's just sort of like, okay, really? the machines had trouble in this area, but this African American community, but not here. And you're like, come on, is that really? If that's just happening, like it just sort of, and the conspiracy theories can start, going, and maybe it's it is, but it's like we're the United States of America. Like if you're gonna, both things can be hold that you can have a sort of arrogance about our country and a pride and everything, but you shouldn't be trying to protect it. You should be trying to engage everybody and trying to get them, allow them to vote. And so, so that's sort of where, I agree with you that it's just something that we need to fight for. And, I go get my, so that's that, if people think that, someone clapped back at me a little bit on LinkedIn the other day about me. Oh, if it's really nonpartisan, then I'm good with this. I'm like, yes, it's nonpartisan. It's a little bit interesting how some of these people, you start sensing that they have voter engagement. They see that as partisan, and that's more about them. I've decided that's more about them than than about the actual effort. I'm truly nonpartisan because politically, I'm of the mind that we've been taken over by the extremes, both sides. And like the middle people, us middle folks sort of got unengaged. And I throw myself in there that you got unengaged. We weren't voting. So whether it's San Francisco, Portland, or Georgia, or small town, like the extremes that got fanatical about stuff. They're the ones that stayed on the task of voting the school board members and these people. Whereas the rest of us trying to just sort of, better ourselves and our families and improve things. We didn't make it to the polls as much. So instead of getting mad at myself about that, I'm trying to make an impact. And Stanford's a wonderful place to do it because we're a little unorganized on stuff. Our heart's in the right place, but our Stanford student engagement voting, should be much higher than it is. So everyone, so I'll have to hit Coach Miles up down at San Jose State. So all you Spartan listeners down there, get Coach Miles. He's been supportive in the past. He's good. And his Instagram and his social media game is much better than mine.
Yeah, he's next level on Twitter and stuff. Yeah, that broadcasting career. Yeah.
He's smart and funny, he's probably better looking than you and I. So he's just got good. He's got it going. So.
Well, that's awesome. So if anybody's listening to this podcast, remember, October is kind of your drop dead. So get out there, get registered before October. I know the absentee ballot, I think that's October 29th to request that. Then you don't have to get out of work to go vote, and you stay out of those long lines and become a part of this process, right? It's kind of a cool opportunity.
And if you have a student in your life, my kids are, my son's in school now, my daughter just graduated. But if you have a student, so like Stanford students, they have a choice. By law, you can register automatically in your state you're going to school. So if you're local and you have a kid going to Colorado or Arizona and they want to vote in California, they can at their home address. And that's normally easier because that's where their license is, and that's easy. But you also, if you're a full-time student somewhere, you can vote there. That's a little harder because nowadays, what's their address, you got to prove that. So you got to go through a process there. But if you're from San Jose and you're going to Arizona State, you want to vote there, you have the right. It's just, you got to go through that process. And so that's trying to help local students with that and trying to get coaches to help their students with that. Because the first question I ask students on that is, where do you consider your home? Where is your community you want to have an impact on? And some politically minded ones, might feel where their vote's going to matter more, but I try not to get into that because I think it's more of a personal thing, not trying to be so transactional about it, but it's just a habit of voting, just trying to get that going.
Okay, so we know where we can find the website to learn more about Stanford basketball. Go stanford.com and get some tickets. We got the ACC schedule, got some great teams rolling into Maples Pavilion this year, so that'll be fun. Everybody needs to get out there and support the Cardinal and Coach Miles down at San Jose State.
Tell him I was putting a plug in for him. I need to.
There you go. And where do they go if they want to learn more about this all vote, no play movement that you got going on?
The best thing is Joe Kennedy, who worked with President Obama, Senator Obama in Chicago, then went to the White House with him. President Obama did voter engagement. In 2020, he was assistant coach at Holy Cross. And so he's a basketball guy. He was the polish behind the whole movement, whereas I was just kind of like, yeah, let's get him registered to vote. How do we do that? I didn't know. All vote, no play, let's go. And he was really political about it in a good way. And so he has since stopped being a coach. So again, he's showing more signs of intelligence than I've ever had. And he started an organization called The Team, and it's called theteam.org. So check that out. It's great for teams, some high school. There's not as much like if you're high school kids and young under 18, there's some good organizations out there. But theteam.org is a great place to start for sort of look at what they're doing in college athletics around this. Vote.org is another, just if you're an adult and want to get more information, check your registration. Vote.org is a very clean site. So it's there for you. And it's just, it feels good just to try to contribute. You can get a lot of, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Don't want to be a whiner with no solution. I don't want to be, there's a lot of stuff that can be frustrating, but just to try to figure out, even if you have to slice that pie down, really, let's say focus really there. I'm going to try to improve this spot right here, and just try to do that. It makes me feel better. It's not be, like I say, not be a hypocrite.
Well, right on. Well, Eric, thanks a ton. We'll look forward to seeing you Friday at Chuck Taylor Grove for that Stanford opener.
Yes, sir.
We'll knock that out, and
I'll be listening Thursday night. I'll be locked in.
Right on. We'll be fired up to have you there as a listener. And again, best thing you can do, give us a follow on the podcast. If you got financial questions, give us a call, 831-717-1144, or you can shoot us an email, krichardson@TAC-Wealth. On behalf of Eric Reveno, our producer, Bill Tucker, and the good people at Proudmouth, thanks for tuning in, and so long for now.
Thank you for listening to the View from the Inside podcast with Kevin Richardson. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. To ask questions about topics covered during the show, head over to www.tacwealth.com. And don't forget to check the show notes for additional contact information. Kevin Richardson is a registered representative with and securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.